How's everybody doing out there? Considering the circumstances, I hope everybody out there is doing relatively good as best as you can. All right. Um, as you all know, there have been a string of white supremacist terrorist attacks across this country within the last week. Many in the FBI and the media want to pretend that these occurrences are separate and have nothing to do with each other. But in my video today, I'm going to draw some strings and connect some dots uh, fairly quickly. I won't hold you too long, and hopefully you get a better picture, and a bigger perspective on what's happening in America today. So far, as all the four terrorist attacks, mass shootings, I have a total of 36 dead and 110 injured, and that's a total of all four from Brooklyn to Ohio to California and to Texas. All right, so the first attack happened in Brownsville, Brooklyn on July 27, 2019, at the Old Times Reunion at 11 p.m. At that particular attack, one person was dead and 11 were wounded. Police are still looking for the suspects responsible for that shooting, and they believe that is two suspects responsible for it. Um, for some strange reason, the police seem to believe that this shooting was gang related, even though they have no suspects or released any images of who they're looking for some reason, because at this situation, it was a mostly black people affected by this mass shooting. They automatically attribute it to gang-related violence. And this story I found was last updated 6 days ago. The national media hasn't been really following this shooting and this terrorist attack ever since it happened on the 27th. But strangely enough, less than 24 hours later, in Gilroy, California, at a garlic fest, around 4:50 p.m., four people were shot dead and 12 injured. Out of the four people that were shot dead, it includes the gunman. This story was last updated today. The victims were mostly white Hispanics, and the killer is Santino William Ligon, who's 19 years old. And this story has quite a bit of traction, and this new information is coming out daily about this particular shooting. However, not so much about the one that happened in Brooklyn, even though the one that happened in Brooklyn was less than 24 hours before this one. The only difference right here is that they found a killer in the Gilroy shooting, and they have yet to find the killers or the killers responsible in the Brooklyn shooting, and the race of the people are different as well. A few days later, on August 3rd in El Paso, Texas, at 10:39 a.m. inside of a Walmart, police began to receive reports of an active shooter. This particular shooter managed to kill 20 people and injured 26 others. The shooting began from the parking lot to inside the store. This story was last updated today as well. The victims were mostly Hispanic, and the killer is Patrick Crucius. And what I found interesting is that because this story has also gained a lot of traction, and they're even considering hate crime prosecution of this particular shooter who's still alive. Um, that when it seems that the Hispanic community are being targeted by racism, white supremacy, it gets a lot of media attention. But when the victims are black and the suspect has yet to be found, identified, or even a sketch of the suspects released, our tragedies get swept under the rug and called simply gang related. Now, with this El Paso Walmart shooting, I came across a news story, a news interview with one of the people who was a survivor and a witness to it, and many are claiming to be a hero. His name is Glenn Oakley. He's an African American man who's a military service member. Now, what I want you to hear about this in this interview, I edited so I can just get straight to the point of what I want you all to hear, is that when he said he heard that there were four gunmen and not one, as the media is reporting. This is common in mass shootings across the nation when witnesses say there are two or three or four gunmen, but only one individual is arrested. So here's the news clip of Glenn Oakley, the military service member, being hailed as a hero for his attempts to save children, stating on local news that he heard that there were four gunmen involved.
They were out their parents and stuff. I tried to pick up as many as I could and bring them out with me. But
now, Glenn, obviously we've heard about stuff like this happening across the country. You being in a situation where you're seeing it here in El Paso, like, how does that make you feel?
shit, I'm in the military, so when I hear gunshots, I just think to pull, take cover, save whoever I can. But I was just so worried about those kids, man, because ain't no telling. Because I heard it was more than one shooter. I heard it was four. And I'm just worried about those kids. I wasn't even really worried about. I was trying to pick up the kids, man.
Okay, family. We're just gonna keep note of that and keep that in the archives and find out as more information comes through and I find out more concerning the number of actual gunmen in these situations. I'll update you as I always do. A few hours, less than 24 hours after that shooting in El Paso at the Walmart, another shooting took place in Dayton, Ohio, at Ned's Peppers Bar. This happened at 1 a.m. in the morning. This shooter happened to be able to kill 9 people, injure 27, and ABC News reported that the news also reported that the shooter's sister and her boyfriend were also found dead in a car. Um, with apparent gunshot wounds. Who's the killer of the sister and the boyfriend hasn't been made clear. This story was last updated today as well. Uh, and what's interesting about this is that 2 out of every 3 of the victims at the Dayton, Ohio bar were black. And the rest were either white or Hispanic. The killer is a 24-year-old man by the name of Connor Betts. Authorities say he was able to do this damage in less than 1 minute. He was able to kill 9 people and injure 27 people in under less than a minute because of the firearm that he used, which suspect was said to be carrying a .223 assault caliber rifle when he went into the bar and just started opening fire. The suspect, Connor Betts, is now dead. He was killed by a responding officer to the shooting. A few notes that I want to make is that one, that it appears that these shootings took place not necessarily within a week of each other, but not back to back necessarily. The first mass shooting, which was in Brooklyn, took place on the 27th, and the next one took place hours later on the 28th. Days passed, and then you had another shooting on the 3rd of August. Hours later, you had another shooting on the 4th of August. Each of these, out of 4 shootings, 2 can go in the set of being only hours apart. Another thing you can draw a conclusion to is that the shooting took place on different parts of the country, on the north, the south, the east, and the west. Now, Simply because it wasn't a simultaneous attack, in my opinion, does not mean that these terrorist acts were not um, carried out by an organization who had the plan to spread fear and terror in each sector of the country, from the north, the south, the east, and the west. The Brownsville shooting cannot, again, as I keep repeating, cannot be labeled as gang related because there are no suspects, no even sketch artistry depiction of a suspect. So to just label the murder of an entirely, mostly black city or festival who are black victims as gang related is quite disrespectful, demeaning, and it takes away from the larger picture and the larger possibility that we have large terrorist white supremacist cells organizing and operating within American society and with impunity because many in law enforcement are involved with these white supremacist groups. And if these individuals responsible for these mass terrorist attacks were really looked deeply into, many of people in law enforcement and in many other sectors of important society will be culpable in what's happening in this nation. Another thing I came across is two websites, 4chan and 8chan. 8chan is commonly known as Infinity Chan because of the symbol. It is known to be a haven of white supremacists to spread and coordinate attacks, give support to one another, and spread hatred about other groups of people to one another, share information, ideas, news. It's like a safe zone away from the common regular internet. It's almost like the Reddit of racists. On this website, through information I gathered from great sources, Patrick, the killer of the Walmart killer, Patrick Cruzius, posted his manifesto of his plans and why he intended to carry out a mass shooting on 8chan. I was able to get a hold of 4 pages. I'm not sure if there were more pages to his manifesto, but here are the 4 pages to his manifesto where he states why he did what he did, why he planned on doing what he now did, his feeling towards the country, the government, and multiracial citizens within this country. I'm going to briefly hold the video clip there, hold each page, it's only 4 pages of the manifesto. But if you want to read the entire thing, please feel free, like always, to pause the video, read the page, and then move on to the next one. And afterwards, I'll come back with the rest of my commentary. Okay, so as you've seen and read in those manifestos, that this young man, Patrick Cruzius, stated a lot of anti-immigration, anti-black, and just anti anything non-white rhetoric that's pretty common and popular in white society, racist white society today, and is also championed by many of the things Donald Trump says and what the people say at his rallies. It's no coincidence that mass shootings, and not only the shootings of black people, but just mass shootings of anybody, even white people, are on the rise because even white people have to be taught a lesson because they're stepping out of line when it comes to white survival. The Hispanics need to be taught a lesson because they're coming to our country unwarranted and illegally, and they are white people feel they're taking their job. Black people need to be dealt with because we are a multi-century old issue and that they haven't solved yet. They hadn't killed us off yet like they believe they should. And then not only that, they can't go back in history and unenslave us and leave us in Africa. So we're just the race of people who they fail to fully get rid of, and who now many think that it's time to uh, put the hammer down and finally get rid of these unwanted people, as they say in a white country. But as more news and information and less spoken about and shared information becomes available, like I always do, I'll definitely come back and give you all an update, share more information and news. And if another one of these white supremacists conduct another mass shooting, terrorist attack, I'll be here to give you the breakdown of that and what other deep-seated hidden information I can find out about. You all stay safe out there. Be prepared, pay attention, and if you can, yourself a firearm and be prepared for the worst. Have a good evening.